Everything is just going wrong today. Can't find my brush. Kids miss the school bus. Stub my toe just getting out of bed.
Really?
What are you playing with?
Just the hex bag?
Is that my hair attached to that?
Maybe.
Damn it, Dave. Friends don't hex friends.
Fine, let's talk about the secret weapon of the Warlock in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
If you love Warlock videos, make sure you don't miss the next one by forming a pact with that subscribe button.
You can also please your patron by Eldritch blasting that notification bell.
So we're about to jump into this video about Warlocks, but there's another place where sometimes we talk about Warlocks and other things, Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. That's in the Nerdarchy newsletter. You can sign up down in the description below. It's a place to get more information about D&D and other things that we talk about, as well as get a chance to game with Nerdarchy. All right, if you haven't guessed it already, today we're going to be talking about the power of the Hex and why it is one of the most potent tools in the Warlock's arsenal.
So Hex is a really great spell, and as the spell slot levels, the duration in which you can hold that concentration gets longer and longer. So it's really useful and it works really well for the Warlock.
Now, the key to using Hex is essentially you have to make an attack roll. Every time you make an attack roll and you hit your opponent, you can then do additional die 6 and necrotic damage. So, you're going to greatly benefit from any spell that offers up multiple attack rolls or anything that gives you, as a Warlock, extra attack. Also, that's why Eldritch Blast is so good for the Warlock.
Yeah, because as you advance in level, the cantrip allows you to get multiple attack rolls with it, allowing you to do that extra die 6 necrotic on every blast that you're doing. Why it works so well with Eldritch Blast is because as that cantrip levels, you get more and more blasts, and you're going to be able to add that die 6 necrotic damage to all of those damage dice.
Before we jump into why the Warlock synergizes so well with Hex, drop your favorite Warlock Hex story into the comments below. And don't forget, there's also social aspects you could use it for as well as exploration. Maybe they came up in your own games.
So Dave just mentioned about the exploration pillar. So there are social aspects for Hex as well. So since you've got the ability to maintain concentration, maybe you just had a battle outside of town and your Hex is still going, and you go in town, you can move your Hex onto someone that you wish to either persuade or deceive. You can Hex their wisdom, so they'll have disadvantage on insight rolls, while you'll just roll straight for your persuasion or your deception skill.
Now, the only drawback to using Hex in that way is at some point you're going to have to murder that person in order to move your Hex again and keep it going, or you're going to have to expend another spell slot.
Well, if you're already in town, you could always short rest, get that spell slot back, end your concentration, and be able to cast it again when you're ready.
That's true. Or just murder them.
Well, you could do that part too, but I am not for murdering townsfolk that you just are trying to get the better of. I mean, let's face it. If I'm gonna just try and deceive you or persuade you, I don't need to just kill you.
You must have the pact with the Celestial.
Maybe.
So, Hex is a spell that would benefit a lot of different character classes, even non-casters. Really, anybody that ever makes an attack roll, it's going to be effective for. Those out of combat uses, everyone's going to be able to take advantage of. So that makes Warlock very attractive for either taking a level dip or maybe even a feat like Magic Initiate. Now, there's also another spell that is very similar to Hex, and that is Hunter's Mark. Now, the difference is the out of combat abilities are a little bit different. They affect your wisdom checks, but Hunter's Mark is very specific in the sense that when you make a weapon attack, where with Hex it's any kind of attack. So that makes it a much more optimal ability for combat anyway, because anybody could benefit it. Anyone who's going to ever make an attack roll could use Hex and then use that as well. So the question is, like, when you talk about level dipping in Warlock, there are so many great combinations.
I mean, if you look at adding hex damage onto your rogue sneak attack, or hex damage onto your fighters. All the attacks that they get, along with an action surge on top of it, that could be incredibly useful. And if we look at Critical Role, Percy's character did just that. He was a gunslinger, the fighter archetype, and he did take Magic Initiate with Warlock specifically to get Hex.
Super useful. Now, the other thing that makes it better as a Warlock spell per se is the fact that when you level up, you mentioned this earlier, when you level up as a Warlock, your slots level up. So you're always casting your Hex as a Warlock at a maximum level. Now, if you take it through some other means and use other spell slots to do it, that means you have to use those higher spell slots, because unlike the Warlock, you have those options. You can decide which ones to use it at.
Right.
Which could be a benefit or a hindrance depending on what you're looking for.
But the higher level spell slots also allow for a greater synergy with Hex, because any of the spells that give you more attack rolls with it, because the spell's levels, that means that's more Hex damage that you're going to be able to apply.
Yeah, eventually, the Warlock can just essentially cast it once a day. As long as they don't lose their concentration, they can just keep moving their Hex around throughout the day, which is going to be a little bit more useful in your combat situations. But still, that makes it a great synergy. So the question is, let us know in the comments, how have you used Hex? Which classes have you used it with? What did you feel was the most effective? Now let's get into different ways, different things we can synergize Hex with, other than just our Eldritch Blast or maybe making attack rolls with melee weapons. So first up, we have Warlock spells that are going to really make your Hex shine.
All right, so if you go with the Fiend Pact, then you're going to get access to Scorching Ray, and as that spell levels, you'll have more rays to be able to throw. Really useful. You can add that fire and necrotic damage all at once.
Eventually, you'll get up to 6 rays, and for a long time, the max damage potential for Scorching Ray actually outperforms Eldritch Blast, even if you take Agonizing Blast, which allows you to add your Charisma modifier to your Eldritch Blast damage. Now, your medium and low damage will always be higher with Eldritch Blast, but the upper tier of what you can do for a very long time, Scorching Ray outperforms it. So 2 other interesting places for the Warlock to use it is Magic Stone. I know it's a favorite spell of yours, and Crown of Stars. Magic Stone, you can enchant up to 3 pebbles with it. And when you throw those 3 pebbles, each one could affect the Hex. The only problem is, at most, I feel like you could throw 2 around, possibly if your DM lets you dual wield them and throw them, or if you happen to have extra attack, then you can maybe get off all 3. So still, it's kind of inferior to Eldritch Blast.
I loved it, in earlier editions, mainly because you could, enchant them and throw them all at once. So that's where, the heartfelt feelings come from. In the new edition, it's not as great. Crown of Stars, another one that allows you to make multiple attack rolls with it. Again, super helpful.
The reason why Crown of Stars is so good, it gives you multiple motes, I believe it's 7 or so to start with, that float around your head, and as a bonus action, you release them to do damage. So you could still hit them with your Eldritch Blast for your attack, release the mote as a bonus action, and if you were a fighter of 2nd level or higher as well, you could action surge, so you could unleash a machine gun of Eldritch Blast and still use your bonus action.
So those are the Warlock spells that we really feel shine with Hex, but there are spells from other classes that I think, or that we think are really great in combination with Hex. First and foremost, on the Sorcerer's list is Chaos Bolt.
Now this one's a little iffy because you're going to have to, roll those 2 dice every time to see if you get a bounce. But if you keep having new targets to hit and you keep getting bounces, then you're going to keep using that Hex over and over again, and it could be kind of fun.
I Can't agree more. Next up is on the cleric list, and that is going to be Spiritual Weapon, another favorite spell of mine, mainly because I love playing clerics, and it's a thing that uses your bonus actions. It's a spell. You summon it with your bonus action. It attacks with your bonus action, and even attacks on the round that you use it. So you can get it off right away. So you hex them one round, Eldritch Blast and Spiritual Weapon the following round. It all works.
Another one is Hound of Faith. Now, this sucker, you summon it, it stays in one spot for 8 hours. Anything that comes within 5 foot of it, it will bite. You're making the attack roll, so if it bites, it's also going to do the hex damage. It's technically a spell effect. It's not really a creature.
And the last one is a newer spell that Dave fell in love with when it first came out, and that is going to be Steel Wind Strike. It takes a lot of levels to get up there. It is a 5th level spell, and it allows you to attack up to 5 creatures. So if you've got 5 different targets, this is going to be great, and it's going to allow you to add that damage because you're making the attack roll with each of those strikes.
Yes, this is actually 6 die 10 points of damage per attack. This actually outshines Eldritch Blast with Agonizing Blast on top of it. And you can get up to 5 attacks with it. As long as there's 5 different creatures to attack. This is a great one. If you happen to be a wizard and you find a way to get a hold of Hex, you're going to want to definitely stack these together. It's going to be amazing to unleash upon your enemies. One of my favorite tactics with this spell, because I played a fighter wizard, was to action surge and do it 2 rounds back to back. And my DM was very unhappy, especially because you're making attack rolls. You can also crit on those rolls, and when you're making that many rolls, you're bound to crit at least once. That's a lot of damage.
That is a lot of damage. So there you go. There is the amazing power of the Warlock is Hex.
Crazy D&D combos for 5e. Kill anything in 30 seconds or less.
Speaking of packs, you can head over to Patreon right now and form a pact with us.
We may not have an Eldritch Blast for you, but we do create 5e content every month, have patron exclusive hangouts, and automatically enter our patrons into monthly giveaways.
So until next time, stay nerdy.